In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Yeah. This is Blood Politics. The only podcast where we don't talk about politics. We be about politics. And our mission statement is to empower, educate, and encourage everyone to speak out against fascism. Speak out against injustice and fight for freedom and equality for everyone. This is blood politics, and we ain't stopping till they put us in the grave. We ain't gonna be quiet, and we ain't gonna be scared, and we ain't gonna go along with the crowd. This is blood politics.
All right, what's happening, gang? What's happening?
This is blood politics, and we gonna do what we gotta do.
All right, what do you say? Stop wasting time, Bryce. Stop wasting time. We don't have time to waste. Everybody make yourself comfortable as you're welcome in here to the chat. I appreciate you once again for joining me. My name's Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. It is Thursday, June 18th, 2026. Lots to discuss. Obviously, we're going to be going over the MOU, the reaction to it. A very bad night for Moscow. Ukraine basically unloaded, I would assume, everything that they had to put up at that time, and it wasn't a good result for the Russian air defenses, let's just say. So we have a ton to look at as far as clips and footage from that is concerned. We'll also be talking about the symbolism behind Donald Trump's Versailles surrender. I don't think that Donald Trump is smart enough to recognize, or anybody in the maggot base is smart enough to recognize, the historic symbolism between, behind the surrender signing at Versailles. But we'll go over all of that. JD Vance sending a warning shot to Netanyahu as he again tries to turn and polish this turd into a golden nugget with Iran that he's not able to do. James O'Brien takes a closer look at Trump's Iran deal. I just saw pop up the news agents, and they're going over a little bit of what they think about Trump's Iran deal. I didn't have a chance to pull out any of the specific funny clips or anything like that, but if we dive into a couple moments, I'm sure we'll get the gist of what they're thinking about it. We got Tim Pool declares not only a victory, guys, not just a victory, but a massive victory somehow without anything to show for it, without providing any evidence, without providing any benefit to what we just went through. And then we got Benny Johnson stunned to see Moscow in flames. Again, somebody that was, wrapped up in the whole tenant media scandal, now kind of looking blindly at his screen as Moscow, like I said, goes up in flames. But we get a lot to talk about as well. What do you say we bring in the chat? What do you say, guys? How are you? You guys always deserve some screen time. You guys make this chat happen. A big thank you to everybody once again. Thank you, Yakov. Thank you, Samuel. What's going on, Roxanne? How are you? What's up, Zircon? What's going on, peeps? What's up, Deb? What's going on, everybody? What's up, Frisky? What's good? Appreciate you. What's up, Philly? What's up, Dame? What's up, Robin, Kimberly? Everybody filtering in right now. What's up, Jupiter Judy? What's up, Roxy? What's up, Jeannie? How are you? Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. What's up, William? What's going on, guys? Yeah, I appreciate you. Like I said, yep, bad night for Moscow. We'll go into all of it. We got a ton to cover as far as that's concerned. We got videos that are giving us updates. We'll look into all of the stuff that's posted to either Telegram or Twitter, wherever it's posted. We're going to take a look at all of the different angles, but a big shout out and a big thank you to the chat for everything that you guys do, especially the mods. Thank you so much, and a big salute to the mods out there that keep that chat a safe place. All right, but let's slide into a little bit of the news here. We'll start off where we've been starting off every single show now, and until we finish, this is exactly what we're going to be starting off with. Another couple milestones hit here, guys. Another big couple milestones. So not only did we hit 100 different donations, 100 separate donations for our NAFO campaign, but also hit the $15,000 raised mark. So we're up to 100 donations, 64% of the way there, 13,151 euro, which I believe, if my calculations are correct, are somewhere in the vicinity of $15,000. So like I said, a couple huge goals raised. Thank you to everybody that's been contributing, whether overnight or beforehand. We want to make this push as soon as possible. And like I said, I can't thank you guys enough for being as involved as you guys are. Let's see if there's anybody else on the wall we can name here. We got Roxanne. Thank you so much. Richard, Vasile. Looks like everybody that's been donating lately kind of did it anonymously, which, to each their own, whatever you guys want to do. If you want the recognition, fine. If you don't, that's fine as well. But, a big thank you regardless to everybody sharing this out. Making this a possibility, again, is a huge honor and a privilege, especially when we're going to be looking at the efficacy of the Ukrainian drone strikes and missile strikes on Moscow as well. So we got a lot to cover, a lot to talk about, but I want to make sure to start off right here. The Boston Bryan Summer of Drones campaign still live. Like I said, go to Help 99, NAFO sniffing, the 69 Sniffing Brigade. The chat, the link should be in the chat. The mod should be throwing that in there sporadically because they're amazing, because they're awesome, and they always do. So again, big thank you to you guys. And this does coincide, like we've said before, this is not a giant community by any stretch of the imagination. We have just enough people here where we can kind of focus on one thing or another. So again, this is at the expense of the channel that we typically do these fundraisers. I'm under no illusions that we're, of a community huge enough to be doing several different things at the same time. Everybody, I'm sure, is on a finite budget, let's just say, and you only have a certain amount to contribute to the channel, to other platforms and things like this. I understand that. I'm right there with you guys. So again, a big shout out, a big thank you to anybody taking the time, money, and anybody sharing this out to your friends, family, coworkers. Is a big it's a big boost to it, and I just want to make sure that you guys feel the love. But let's start off here before we get into a little bit of the Iran coverage and what the idiocy coming from Trump and coming from JD Vance. I wanted to touch base on this. You guys were talking about this in the chat yesterday, and asking you guys shall receive. So this was the story of Cohen Wiley down in Mississippi, a 1-year-old that was killed when police shot at the car during an alleged shoplifting call. Again, why firearms were being discharged in a public, in a public space like that. Again, when the call, when the report, when the what they were alleged to have done was to steal some diapers. Right. So this whole thing is angering people throughout the country, and rightfully so. And you guys were talking about it in the chat. So I just wanted to see if we could touch base on a little bit more of what happened here. It says Cohen Wiley was killed in Sunday's shooting in a Walmart parking lot, and a friend of his mother was seriously injured. A Mississippi family is demanding answers after a 1-year-old was killed when police responding to a shoplifting call at a Walmart fired at their vehicle. And again, for what I've seen from the clips that I've seen, it doesn't show anything remotely close to what they're alleging. It doesn't seem to me like there are officers in danger, and still to discharge a weapon at a moving vehicle in a public area like that, not the fucking smartest thing. We've learned that time and time again from ICE, from different police forces throughout the country. But it goes on to say here that Cohen Wiley, was in a vehicle with his mother and a family friend when he was fatally shot, says civil rights attorney Ben Crump. The friend was critically injured. He said Cohen Wiley was a baby. His mother, who has not been charged with any crime, says she was trying to communicate to officers that there was a baby in the car. Crump said in a statement on Tuesday, they fired anyway, leading to the death of an innocent 1-year-old. We intend to seek justice for baby Cohen and the life that was stolen from him. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, which is investigating the shooting, said in a statement that when Senatobia police officers arrived, they encountered 2 subjects and a juvenile child fleeing from the store into a vehicle. And I guess their first thought was, hey, apparently they're stealing diapers, so maybe we should stop them with deadly force, which is just, again, asinine to think that you would even come to that level, like you would get to that point right then and there. The driver drove to the nearby hospital where the child was pronounced dead. Unfortunately, no law enforcement officers were injured. The state agency said in its statement, Senatobia police did not immediately respond to a request for comment Tuesday. The police department said on Facebook that it was, quote, committed to full transparency. As the investigation progresses and the facts are verified, we will share as much information as possible, the department said. The Tate County Sheriff's Office was also on scene for the shooting. The office said in a news release that the deputies had been responding to an unrelated incident when their assistance was requested. Please keep the family of the deceased in your thoughts and prayers. Let's just say Markel Bridges, a community advocate who is helping the family, said on Facebook on Tuesday the boy's mother did not steal from Walmart and, quote, was not a witness to or an accomplice to any crime. She was skipping and playing with her child Cohen to the car moments earlier, not fleeing a theft, he said. When starting an ordinary day, playing with your baby and getting into a car turned into the worst day of a mother's life and a tragedy this community will carry for years to come. He called on the police department to release the body camera and store surveillance footage. Carlos Hines and the child's grandfather told the Associated Press that Cohen was a happy baby who had his life cut short. Someone ended it all before it could even start. Haynes said the child's family did not immediately respond to NBC's news request for comment on Tuesday. And it goes on to say that Mississippi Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall said at a news conference that the body camera footage and other possible evidence won't be released until after the state's investigation is complete and presented to the Attorney General's office for possible criminal charges. But obviously, there is some footage out there that you can see, that you could look up. But yeah, people talking about this in the chat yesterday, and it seems to be just another egregious act by law enforcement. Just right away going from 0 to 100. Suspecting somebody of a crime is not the same thing as being able to just sit there and utilize deadly force on that person and their child. Right. And again, we've talked about how ICE before, you're not supposed to, and it's not a great idea when you got a moving vehicle that you think is coming at you to discharge your weapon or murder that person that's driving that vehicle so that it goes out of control and drives even more erratically potentially. So it just, shocking to everybody that was the decision by the law enforcement officers there. And this is the result of it, a 1-year-old getting killed in a Walmart parking lot. Because again, even if they were suspected of taking something like diapers, you'd think there's other ways to approach this. And you think, you could get the information, you could get the license plate, not that fucking big of a deal. And maybe you could just track them down after, send somebody to their house. Ton of different ways you could have approached this and handled this. And discharging your firearm into the vehicle, not one of those things. So, like I said, you guys were speaking about this, talking about this, and enraged about this yesterday. So I just wanted to make sure that we touched base on that. So appreciate you guys for bringing that to my attention. I think it was DPD yesterday who sent in a super chat and wanted to make sure that we touch base on that story as well. So appreciate you, DPD, and obviously the rest of the chat that always sends us stuff to keep us informed and up to speed on what's going on. All right, let's take a look at a little bit of this ridiculous Versailles surrender, because like I said, I don't think anybody on the Trump side of things recognizes the historic symbolism of what's taken place in the past with Versailles. We're talking about the end of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles being signed, which led to one of the most, I don't know what you want to call it, detrimental points in history. Right after that, it was pretty much a guarantee right after the Treaty of Versailles was signed that we were going to have World War II. But again, Donald Trump and I think Emmanuel Macron leaning on that a little bit, inviting Donald Trump to Versailles and kind of, telling him about, and you know how much Donald Trump loves gold shit and opulence and extravagance, right? So I don't think it was very difficult for Emmanuel Macron to say, hey, why don't you come down to Versailles? I'll show you around the place. You can get a couple ideas for the White House, maybe. You know what I mean? If you don't see enough gold shit in the White House already, maybe you see a little bit more at Versailles. But there's obviously historical relevance to that. But before we get into it, what do you say we take a look at, the clip of Donald Trump signing what looks to be a deal, the MOU, but in Farsi, right? So it doesn't look to be in English. Let me just throw this on the screen. And this was, posted on Twitter. It says, French President Emmanuel Macron pulls off what could be the greatest diplomatic troll of all time by getting Trump to sign the $300 billion U.S. surrender to Iran deal in Versailles. The ignoramus Trump will have been clueless as to the historical significance of the location. And like I said, this is just a real quick clip of Trump signing it. And as they zoom in, you can see how, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe that Farsi goes from right to left, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, if anybody knows better than I do as far as that's concerned, let me know in the chat. But I think that's what it looks like on this page. It definitely doesn't look like English, and it's not written the way that English would be written, from left to right, top to bottom type of thing. You can see here. And then there's another clip of where Marco Rubio basically has to lean over Trump's shoulder and explain to him where he has to sign. I'm assuming because it's in Farsi, but here we go. It's just a quick clip of Trump putting his signature on a deal written in Farsi. As they zoom in, right? I'll kind of stop it there, but it looks like that writing goes from right to left, right? And let me see. I'll check the chat, do a little update on the chat. Let me see here. Anybody telling me if I'm wrong or right? Hello there, people. Deal in Farsi's eyes. Let's see here. Oh, Stagmus says yes. Peter says you are absolutely correct. So is that what you're talking about? Are we talking about the same thing? Because I believe that's how it works. Okay. Like I said, I'm not the most educated person on earth, but I do believe that's how that goes. And it looks like if you look at the sheet, if you look at the page that he's signing, looks like the writing goes from right to left. You can see the full sentence starts on the right, and then the end of the sentence is in the middle of the page, and the left side of the page is blank. Right. So that's, in my eyes, in my opinion, Donald Trump signing a document in Farsi. Right. So, like I said, this is at Versailles. He continues here to put his ridiculous signature that absolutely doesn't say Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination on this document. Which, again, just to reiterate to everybody, is not a deal, is not a finalized deal. I just want to make that clear. They're trying to portray it as this finalized deal, but this is a memorandum of understanding to continue the talks on a lot of different aspects. Okay, so just want to make that fucking clear. But you can clearly see that that's not English, right? Regardless if I'm right or wrong as far as Farsi is concerned, like that's not English.
Bravo.
Okay, so then he gets his, ridiculous round of applause. There was a couple other posts here. This is Emmanuel Macron posted. President Trump signed tonight at Versailles the agreement between Iran and the United States. This agreement paves the way for lasting peace and allows the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. It is an important step in the right direction for our compatriots that will soon enable a decrease in energy prices. And again, I think Macron's given a little bit of a ribbing here, but I believe this is the one where Marco Rubio, here's Marco Rubio leaning in and being like, no, this is where you get to sign, boss. This is, you put your name right there. Do I have to fucking spell out your name for you too? look at Rubio. Oh, sorry. My apologies, Peter, for keeping your comment up there too long. But here you go. Here's this clip. Yeah, you sign there and sign there. Yeah, I know you can't understand what it says because it's in Farsi, but just trust that it says everything that you want it to say. And sign here, dotted line here, initials here.
Sounds good. This was not easy, I can tell you.
And it's not done. You know what I mean? It's still not done. So like I said, I don't know if I didn't watch the signing process or anything like that. So I don't know if he signed multiple documents and one of them just happened to be Farsi, but the one that seems to be making its way around social media is definitely the one that was, the document in Farsi. This is, Trump is oblivious to the symbolism, but I have a hard time believing this wasn't a subtle screw you from Macron. Sir, sign the document in this magnificent palace. Its grandeur is matched only by your strategic brilliance, only to have everyone ridicule and mock Trump afterwards. So everybody seems to be picking up on, even if Macron didn't intend it this way, the historical significance regardless, right? To have this, what is looked at to be a just clear capitulation, a clear surrender by the United States, signed at Versailles. I mean, it's just anybody that knows their history, anybody that knows anything about World War I, World War II, like it's not lost on anybody, right? It's just not. And we'll go over a little bit of kind of the symbolism after this, but there's a few more posts. This was by the White House talking about how he signed the Iran Memorandum of Understanding at Versailles in France. Right, that was the document you can see there. The Trump regime is illiterate enough not to understand how Macron set Trump up with proposing Versailles of all locations to sign his defeat. Well played, France. Well played. So you can see everybody kind of recognizing this, besides people on the right and besides people in Trump's camp. Narrated, Trump just signed the deal in Versailles per the White House official. Again, people mocking him for where he's signing it. Unreal, the symbolism of Trump signing a surrender agreement at Versailles in which the U.S. agrees to pay massive reparations is just too perfect. I wouldn't be surprised if Macron weaponized Trump's complete ignorance of history and told him something like, quote, Mr. President, Versailles is where the most consequential deal of the 20th century was signed. Yours deserves the same stage. Either that or Macron stumbled into the perfect historical parallel through sheer obliviousness, which knowing him is actually even more likely. You know what I mean? So regardless if this was a setup by Macron, this was intended by Macron, it's clear to everybody the relevance here. Here's a clip of Macron walking down one portion of the palace here with Trump looking around, as it says here, like he wants to buy the place. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Trump eyeing the Palace of Versailles like he's thinking of buying it as a second home. Like, no, I don't know. Come on, let's let's be real here. I don't think he's got that much liquidity floating around. You know what I mean? I know he's stolen a bunch off the backs of the blue collar people and the rest of the people in this country, but I don't think he's working with that much. But like I said, here's just a quick clip of them walking around. Trump looking at all the gold shit, which I'm sure was a huge draw to get him here in the first place. I'm not sure if there's any sound on it. They're just kind of flopping their way around. Trump's looking at the opulence, looking for ideas for the White House. It continues here where they go upstairs. He's looking at the staircase, probably asking ridiculous questions. They go check out the sunset. He's pointing at the ceiling. Trump shits himself in front of everybody, struggles to walk with his cankles. Again, Macron having to explain nice shit because Trump doesn't understand it. Trump looking like absolute dog piles of shit right there, not being able to walk very well. Let's see, what else? Any dumb? Yeah, here he is. The hunchback of fucking the hunchback of Notre Dame there, making his way into the palace for his pictures, posing for pictures. There you go, that one. But all right, just a little bit of the, the historical symbolism to be told here, right? I mean, obviously everybody knows about well, if you don't know, we'll probably explain it here. I just kind of typed in just a broad overview, a general overview to give everybody just a quick rundown in case you're not up to speed on, what we're talking about as far as historical symbolism. But this goes on to say, Adolf Hitler orchestrated the ultimate act of historical revenge by forcing France to sign its World War II surrender in the exact same railway car in forest clearing where Germany had capitulated at the end of World War I, right? So same railway car, right? Same forest in which after World War I, the Germans were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, right? After the German military ran through France, Germany and Adolf Hitler forced France to then take that railway car that they had, I believe, in a museum at the time, and then take that railway car and bring it to the exact spot, I believe in Compiègne, in France, to have the French sign their capitulation there. They brought them there to embarrass them. They made him wait for a long period of time. Adolf Hitler went on for a couple minutes and then he left while everybody else had to do the deal. It was supposed to be this huge moment, this huge return, basically this moment of revenge for the German military after what they saw was this, huge disservice to them from the Treaty of Versailles. So basically, this is what we're talking about. So it says, while the formal Treaty of Versailles was signed in Paris, the actual ceasefire, the armistice of November 11, 1918, was signed in this rail car, a moment Hitler and the Nazi Party viewed as the ultimate national stab in the back. When France fell in June 1940, Hitler used these exact symbols to stage manage a ritual humiliation. It says the setup, June 21st to 22nd, 1940, following the rapid fall of France in May. In June 1940, the French government sought a ceasefire. Hitler personally dictated those negotiations take place at the far east of Compiègne. The rail car breakout, the original wooden dining car used in the 1918 Compiègne wagon number 2419D was being preserved in a nearby French museum. German engineers physically smashed the museum walls, towed the cars out, and placed it in the exact railway tracks it had been occupied 22 years prior. On June 21, Hitler arrived at the clearing. He sat in the exact chair previously occupied by the French Marshal Ferdinand Foch, the man who had dictated the terms to the defeated Germans in 1918. So you can see the symbolism here coming from the Treaty of Versailles being signed after World War I, how Hitler went on to use that and how it's consistently been used as this black mark, this black stain in history that directly led to World War II. It was like most historians and military experts will say, it was pretty much inevitable as soon as the Treaty of Versailles was signed after World War I that we were going to get a World War II. The question was just when, how long after World War I it was going to come. And obviously history got its answer not too long after that. It said, just like Foch did in 1918, Hitler listened to the opening terms, then stood up, walked out of the carriage as an intentional display of contempt, leaving his military chief, Keitel, to finish the job. The final document was signed the next day, June 22nd. So again, just talking a little bit about the symbolism of not only the Treaty of Versailles, but also the way it's been used, throughout history to kind of embarrass other people. It says, the legendary rail car was carted off to Berlin as a Supreme War trophy in 1945 as Allied troops advanced deep into Germany. Hitler ordered the SS to burn the carriage to ensure it would never witness a third and final German surrender. So, just a little bit of that. And obviously we could go back into a little bit of the Treaty of Versailles as well. This was a peace treaty signed on 28 June 1919 as the most important treaty of World War I. It ended the state of war between Germany and the most of the Allied powers. It was signed in the Palace of Versailles, exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the proximate cause of the war. The Central Powers on the German side signed separate treaties, although the armistice, like we just talked about, on 11 November 1918 ended the actual fighting and agreed to certain principles and conditions, including the payment of reparations. It took 6 months of Allied negotiations at the Paris Peace Conference to conclude the peace treaty. Germany was not allowed to participate in the negotiations before signing the treaty, and obviously it goes on to talk about a little bit more of that. But, I'm sure everybody, like I said, can recognize a little bit of the historical symbolism being used here. And like I said, whether or not it was privy to Macron, whether or not this was in the back of the mind of Emmanuel Macron when he did this, and where they picked kind of the place that this was going to happen is irrelevant. I think history doesn't really care if Emmanuel Macron set this up by himself or it was orchestrated by the French in general. I think they'll recognize, again, the fact that the United States is using the Palace of Versailles to sign their surrender against a war that they enacted in conjunction with Israel against Iran, which Iran withstood. Right? They withheld. They still have military capabilities. We're looking at basically the total enrichment of the Iranian state based upon the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been thrown around in the MOU. Obviously, their ability to continue to sell oil, the relieving of sanctions, all of these things go to financially benefit the Iranians, and they're coming out on top by everybody's kind of, gathering. Everybody that's looked at this MOU, anybody that understands what's going on, and is pretty much coming to the same conclusion, unless you're a part of the MAGA cult, which, like I said, our next guest on the show is this asshole here. We only have a couple clips, so don't worry about it. J.D. Vance, again, going out there to do his best to try to turn this ginormous chunk of shit, this ginormous piece of dog shit, into a gold bar somehow, and he's failing at every point. And I don't think that Donald Trump minds that he's failing, right? I don't think it's, like I said, I think Donald Trump has wanted to throw J.D. Vance under the bus. I think that's why he kind of sent him on this media tour to go out and, like I said, polish the turd here, make it seem like it was some sort of victory when everybody knows it was a clear defeat. But there was a couple clips from a moment earlier today from J.D. Vance where he looked like an idiot in trying to, like I said, turn this into something positive. This one says, why would I say to any of the critics, number one, have a little bit of faith in President Trump? So that's just where he's basically saying, I know none of these terms sound good. I know it doesn't look good. I know everybody thinks this is a loss for the United States, but have some faith in the 34-time felon. Have some faith in the guy that was twice impeached. Have some faith for the guy that led an insurrection against his own country. Have a little faith for the guy that said he could grab women by the pussy because he's a star and they let you do it and you don't have to ask permission. Why don't we talk about, you have some faith in the guy that says he wants to have sex with his own daughter. Let's have some faith in the guy that had sex with a porn star 5 months after his wife gave birth. Let's have some faith in a guy that's bankrupted more fucking companies than, acts of corruption he's been able to perpetrate in his second administration. How about we have a little faith in that guy? No, thank you. But here's J.D. Vance, the vice president, begging everybody to just put your trust and faith in Donald Trump to have some positive outcome in this, where, again, nobody sees any positive outcome to be had.
Many of the colleagues that you served with in the U.S. Senate and Republican Conference have criticized this deal over the last 24 hours. What is your message, Mr. Vice President, back to them?
So I guess I would say to anybody, any of the critics, is number one, have a little bit of faith in the President of the United States. The idea that he is going to strike a deal that's been bad for the American people, it's preposterous.
It's crazy to think the guy that, like I said, has bankrupted more companies than anybody on the fucking face of the planet, right? It's crazy to think that he would make another shit deal. The guy that's made shit deal after shit deal after shit deal that's screwed everybody in this country, from the blue-collar workers to farmers in this country, you name it, and he's screwed them over. The stupid deals and ridiculous deals that he's tried to come out and say were great he's made with China. Meanwhile, China just never fulfills their end of the deal. I mean, we could go down the list of tariffs, the whole fucking devastation that he's proposed upon us, that he's put upon us, right? And that's the guy that we're supposed to trust. All the things I listed before, obviously you find that ridiculous, but J.D. Vance thinks that's going to work. Here's another asinine part of this morning's little press conference that he had, where again they're trying to basically say that there's going to be no money handed over. They're still trying to get this point across, right? Which is just ridiculous, considering we have the text of the memorandum of understanding. We can see what it says. We can see what we have to do. We can see what Iran's going to be given in this, right? So here's JD Vance, where he says the Obama deal gave them over $1 billion of American money. This deal gives them $0 of American money. Right. Okay. So it's like, again, does it really matter? Are we talking about, where exactly the money's coming? We can get to that point, but are we just not exactly going to, I don't know, we're just not going to recognize, we're just not going to appreciate that the Iranians are going to be enriched at the end of this? Right. I mean, you keep talking about it's not going to be American money. It's not going to be American cash. Well, it's got to come from somewhere. You know what I mean? It's not just going to come, poof, being just out of thin air somewhere, just appear. You know what I mean? It's got to come from somewhere. So if it's not coming from American taxpayers, then it's coming from some fund, and somebody else is going to have to pay for this, which again is not leading us to, friendlier relations with our allies when they have to foot the bill for a war that we enacted. But again, here's where he's lying his face off about Barack Obama as well.
So there are many differences. The Obama deal gave them over $1 billion of American money.
And again, that's that's a blatant lie anyway, because it was frozen Iranian assets, right? It was not American taxpayer money. It was money that had been held or withheld by the United States, but it was Iran's funds. So again, it wasn't American taxpayer money that was handed over. It's a direct lie there by JD Vance, the vice president of the United States. And again, the fact that he's trying to walk around this issue of Iran potentially getting anywhere from 300 to 400. I mean, I've heard anywhere as far as like nearly fucking $500 billion at this point, potentially, when you add up all of the, the relieving of the sanctions, the oil that they're going to get to sell, obviously the frozen Iranian assets, obviously the $300 billion fund that we've been talking about and discussing. Like, we're talking about a substantial chunk of change here. So he's lying through his teeth right off the goddamn bat.
This deal gives them $0 of American money. So a lot of substantive differences, but I think the most important differences are where we're coming at it from a position of strength and the fact that our Gulf Coast partners love this deal.
A position of strength is fucking hilarious. Is absolutely hilarious when, again, you're buying your way out of this, when you're creating funds of $300 billion in worth to get your ass out of this devastatingly chaotic war that you guys have enacted. And here's kind of the last one that will show where he's taking his shots at Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. Obviously, we played comments from people like Ben Gvir stating that they're going to act as an independent nation. They're not involved in these peace negotiations, and that they're going to continue to basically erase homes in southern Lebanon and deny people access back to their homes. So again, I think this was JD Vance taking his opportunity to try to send Benjamin Netanyahu a message, and this is the message that he decided to send. I'll play this quick clip for you here.
To completion. Now, I saw the Axios report. That Netanyahu is fuming. That's not reflective of conversations that I've had with him, but maybe he's saying something to somebody else that he's not saying to me. What I will say, and this does bother me, is that you've seen people within Bibi's cabinet who have come out and attacked the deal, and in some ways very personally attacked the president of the United States. And I guess my message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time.
I mean, that's a pretty fucking big statement, you would think, right? From the Vice President of the United States of America stating that Donald Trump is the only leader on the planet that is actually sympathetic to the Israeli cause right now. I mean, that's not a veiled threat by any means. That's basically, we're your only friends. And if you start fucking around with us, then, you're going to be out in the cold. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the, reading between the lines of what he's saying as far as that's concerned. But it's a pretty big statement, in normal times, in regular democratic, democratic and political times. That would be a pretty big story. That would be a pretty big headline that the Vice President of the United States stated that the President of the United States is the only friend on the planet that the President of Israel has. Benjamin Netanyahu.
He happens to be the head of state of the world superpower. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world. And the second message I would give to some of those cabinet members, Bibi, to his credit, has not gone down this path, but to some of these cabinet members in Israel who are attacking the President of the United States, the other thing that I would say is that over the last 3 months, 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel,
and I don't
is
think
not-
people are going to like to hear that reiterated. I really don't. When, again, you look at what happened in Gaza, you look at what's happening in Lebanon, you look at their continued push into the West Bank against international law with their settlements. I don't think people are going to hear it reiterated just how much we're involved and just how much, how many millions of dollars we spent over there in aid and weaponry that they've used on these innocent people. So I don't think JD Vance is getting the appropriate message across that he thinks he's getting, right? Not the flex that he thinks it is. But again, it's a clear message being sent to Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet, people in Israel, that if they don't play ball, that they're going to lose what he's stating is their last partner, their last ally in the world, which is, like I said, a pretty big statement by JD Vance there. All right, let's get into some of these clips here. Let's get into let's play this one first. This is James O'Brien and just a couple minutes of his take on this Trump-Iran deal that was signed at Versailles. He says a closer look at Trump's deal with Iran. So I figured we'd just jump into a couple looks of what people are saying, what they're talking about as far as the outcome of this situation and obviously the stipulations of the MOU in and of itself. And then after this, we got one here from the news agents where they're talking about the deal. And then I got Tim Pool trying to claim this as being a massive victory, and obviously a lot more to come as far as the strikes inside of Moscow. So a lot to get through, a lot to come still. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's just dive into a little bit of this James O'Brien talking about what he thinks of this Trump-Iran deal. Appreciate you guys. Hit that like button.
So Iran get 300 billion quid. The regime is still in place. All of the poor people who were persuaded to trust Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu because they would somehow effect regime change are in a worse position than they were in before. And Donald Trump is doing a lap of honor. And I don't know that anyone would put money on Benjamin Netanyahu abiding to the terms of this deal as opposed to torching the whole thing.
So again, everybody recognizes that this is far from set in stone, right? This is far from a finalized deal. This is far from being the end of hostilities, and we can go back to whatever was, normalcy before this. We're far from that. Is still kind of that line in the sand still seems to be there, and what Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government is going to do as far as cooperating with the terms or not cooperating with the terms. And I feel like that could have huge ramifications, not only for obviously the conflict with Iran, but obviously for the world in general, as far as whether or not the Strait of Hormuz remains or is opened or whatever happens with that, obviously is going to have huge impacts on us going forward. So none of this set in stone yet by any stretch of the imagination.
By continuing his murderous rampage in Lebanon. Have I missed anything out? It's so depressing, isn't it? Normally, if you make a prediction, it's not like getting the lottery numbers right, is it, Keith? Normally, when you make a prediction, there is at least a frisson of satisfaction or fulfillment attached to it, but not on this kind of stuff. Hasn't been for 10 years now, almost to the week. It's next week that we celebrate that particular anniversary, although, of course, the people that won will not be celebrating, which kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it? More perhaps on that a little later in the programme, but I can't get a phone-in out of this. I don't think anyone can get a phone-in out of this, really. Not an interesting phone-in, because who's going to claim? I suppose if you were a Donald Trump fan and you were too embarrassed to admit what a hideous mistake you'd made by backing him, you might pretend that there was a debate to be had. Is this a good deal? What do you think of it? But that's a bit like having a debate about whether the Pope is a Catholic or bears defecate in woodland glades. It's just ridiculous.
Or bears shit in the woods. I'll say it if you can't because you're on radio, James.
Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I don't think anybody can clink to the notion that this has
and he's right, though, because there are few and far between people, even on the hellscape known as Twitter, right? There are just the smallest amount of people that you would expect out there portraying this as a victory. We talked about, what was it yesterday? Jack Posobiec, Nick Sordor, Graham something, the usual idiots that are on Twitter that no matter what happens, they have to try to make it look like a victory. They always have to try to pry victory out of the jaws of defeat and polish the turd into a gold nugget. That's what their job is. That's what they get paid to do, and that they're going to continue to do that, like I said, until the Titanic hits the bottom of the ocean. But those seem to be the only people, because we talked about Ben Shapiro, Thomas Massey, who is it? The senator from Louisiana, Cassidy. I was blanking on his name for a second there, but a lot of people on the right hand side not liking any of the terms of this deal whatsoever. So
once again turned into one of those things that the critics of Trump have been proved completely right about. The other story in the news today involves the criminals involved in the January the 6th insurrection preparing to apply for millions of dollars in compensation. Compensation for what? And the second piece of the story is the so-called deal that we have been saying for weeks, I kid you not, for weeks, was going to look exactly like it looks like and would be greeted by exactly the kind of behavior that you're seeing. Remember when people used the phrase Trump derangement syndrome? They were the ones that thought he was a good guy. They were the ones that thought he was going to deliver good stuff, all the good stuff. Dick Littlejohn in the Daily Mail never been more ashamed to be British than when Keir Starmer declined to join in with this absolute madness, almost certainly illegal, but absolutely certifiably insane behaviour. I don't know what he's writing about this week, probably 25-year-old episodes of Crackerjack, but here we are. And it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter that we're right. It doesn't matter that we've been proved right about it because nothing really shifts. The needle doesn't move. Donald Trump fans will continue to be Donald Trump fans in significant enough numbers to make a mockery of reality and truth. I said I wasn't going to talk about it. I hate it when this happens. I can't get a phone in out of this because there are no conflicting opinions. What do you think of this deal? Well, it's great for the Iranians. The regime hasn't changed. They come out of it $300 billion for the good, and there are absolutely no guarantees in place that they will neither or not end up with a nuclear weapon. The enriched uranium that Tehran already has appears to have been subject to an unspecified arrangement, although just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump was saying, hey, it's no big deal. The enriched, imagine how, I mean, Israeli people who are not, haven't had their brains boiled by Benjamin Netanyahu, imagine how they feel about hearing Donald Trump say, hey, don't worry about the enriched, don't worry about the nuclear dust, that's fine, it's no big deal. I've said it before and I'll say it again. He'll tell you on a Monday that black is white, and he'll tell you on a Tuesday that black is black again, and then on a Wednesday that black is white, that up is down, that left is right, that peace is war, that ignorance is strength, and that freedom is slavery. And on it jolly well goes.
And again, the recognition of the absurdity of this whole thing, and obviously the fact that normal people, sane people recognize the detriment to not only society, but obviously the power afforded to Iran as far as the outcome of this situation in comparison to people that no matter what happens, are going to try to turn this into a victory somehow. They're going to play it up like Donald Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, when in fact, obviously we know how ridiculous and insane and just living on another planet you'd have to be to even suggest something like that, but it continues. You know what I mean? We like to see what other people around the world are saying. So here's one from the news agents, and again, they're talking about why is Trump now handing over billions to Iran? Basically, they're just, their general thoughts on this ridiculous MOU, which is a clear sign of capitulation by the United States to anybody with eyes, to anybody with ears, to anybody that's been paying attention to the situation. So again, just a minute or two of this, and then we'll go on, because I think Tim Pool's desperate to get everybody to believe that this was a massive victory. Speaking about, the maggots, they're going to ride the Titanic down to the bottom of the sea. Dim Fool coming up next. So, all right, let's see if we can just dive into a couple minutes of this news agents and see what they think of this MOU from Trump.
Donald Trump wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. Maybe it's time to update that with The Art of the Capitulation.
Even Trump's closest allies are telling us what they
So I'm guessing right off the bat, they don't think it's a good deal. If you're changing the name from The Art of the Deal to The Art of the Capitulation, I think that kind of sends a direct message on what you think from the MOU.
really think of his deal with Iran.
Donald Trump has absolutely achieved sweet f***all in this war with Iran so far.
I do have
sweet fuck all. Now, I haven't used that descriptor yet. Nor have I heard that described like that yet. So, I'd like to at least give him his flowers, toss him a little bit of the credit for describing it like that. Sweet fuck all. It's a good descriptor of what we got out of this deal. Sweet fuck all. I like it.
Concerns about the memorandum of understanding now that we see it, and the terms about what's in it and also what's not in it suggests to me that it does smack of the kind of appeasement that our administration rejected.
But my message is, we have defeated their military. Don't suddenly come in with massive buckets.
Jesus Christ, man. Look, I know I'm no fucking, I'm no model here. I'm no 10 out of 10, but Jesus Christ, is he an ugly son of a bitch. Good Lord. Like, he's just as deserving of a jump scare, of like a warning, as Trump's neck is. Okay. So like when before anybody exposes you to Trump's neck, you got to kind of be forewarned in case you just ate. Like the same thing should happen with Ted Cruz. I should maybe, copyright that situation, because I am sorry that that's on your screen right now, but Jesus Christ, is he one ugly son of a bitch.
Of cash to let them rebuild and become a threat to America again.
You know, we criticize Obama for sending plane full of $150 billion in cash. I'm hearing a $300 billion number. That's concerning to me.
And the
Did
batting.
you say 150 billion? So that number is just whatever you say it is at this point. Went from 1.7 to 1.8 to 150 billion dollars on a plane all of a sudden. Jeez, must have been a big fucking plane.
The order of voices you heard there was former Vice President to Donald Trump, Mike Pence, ally of Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Republican Senator Tom Tillis, not exactly giving a big thumbs up to Donald Trump's memorandum of understanding to end the war in Iran.
Yeah, when your friends are calling it the worst foreign policy blunder in decades, imagine what your critics are saying. Welcome to the News Agents.
The News Agents.
It's John.
It's Mateless.
And last night, in the setting of the Palace of Versailles, a sort of treaty was signed. Because let's face it, Versailles has such a great record of signing peace treaties that go really, really well.
I'm telling you, everybody recognizes the historic symbolism. Every single person that has any knowledge of history, that has been paying attention, that knows a thing or two about a thing or two, recognizes the symbolism. Donald Trump is just like, look at the gold. We signed it at Versailles. It's amazing. Everybody's going to remember this as like this historic achievement. He's just an absolute twat, the guy is.
In the long term, maybe they should have done it somewhere else. A cafe down the road or a little brasserie would have been far better than being actually in Versailles to sign this memorandum of understanding. But that is what happened. And European leaders who were there applauded because that's what they do. And realistically, what they have come out with is next to nothing. What's going to happen is that for the next 60 days, the Strait of Hormuz will be open. Well, it was open before the war started. And that Iran is going to get sanctions lifted against it. So who's won? There is only one winner in this. It's Iran.
Yeah, a little later in the podcast, you're going to hear from Poland's Deputy Prime Minister, Radek Sikorski, who was asked directly from John why all the G7 leaders have to sit there clapping and applauding at something that they know is provably false. And the reaction is quite interesting. I guess it takes us to the very heart of how Europe has to deal with Trump.
Well, I think it goes back to in a little bit, and this is, no excusing their fucking seal clapping of this ridiculous moment. But I mean, I think the two options that we have of full scale war, all out bombing and, this situation, this is obviously the better of the two. Like I said, there was no clear off ramp without this clear capitulation. There was no clear off ramp without giving up a ton in return and not forcing Iran to give up a whole hell of a lot, right? So we came out of it with no goals achieved. They came out of it, rewarded for their ability to withstand the blockade, their ability to stand the military power of Israel and the United States. So it's like I said, it's pretty clear to everybody who the winner and the loser is in this. And, it's, anybody that's paying attention, knows exactly what's going on.
Even when.
But like I said, that's probably the reason why, to a certain extent, you saw the leaders that were there, clapping like seals. And at least, like I said, it's better than the bombs being dropped on the Middle East. It's better than, water treatment facilities being hit and girls' schools being bombed. So in that regard, like I said, even on this show, we recognize that this being the better of the two options. But not giving credit by any stretch of the imagination to Donald Trump or this administration for, again, signing this ridiculously, I don't know, what even watch it, ridiculously obvious deal of capitulation.
Reality is staring us in the face. But I think it is worth going through some of the reality that we now know from what is not actually a peace deal on paper, but a memorandum of understanding. The conflict was 110 days and the accord has got 14 points, and it is worth going through some of those bit by bit.
And we've gone through these points, so I don't see any need to subject you any further to those 14 points. I think it's pretty clear. Like I said, we've gone over it a few times. And why don't we say we let this idiot? We can let Dim Fool tell us about all the beneficial things that the United States has come out with out of this. And for some reason, he's using the New Republic, right? So a guy that loves to bash on mainstream media as fake news. Meanwhile, he utilizes them for every story for a video he needs to put out. Now utilizing the New Republic. Again, couldn't pick a more liberal organization if he tried, right? I don't think. But again, this is Trump's Iran peace deal is not just a victory, guys, not just a victory. It is a, quote, massive victory. Ignore the haters, Tim Pool says. And like I said, I jumped through about 2 or 3 minutes of this before the show, and I saw 0 pieces of evidence or 0 things proposed to us that would, make us believe this was somehow beneficial towards the United States. But maybe you guys could see it where I missed it. Like I said, let's just go through a couple minutes and call out this idiot, Dim Fool, trying to get you to believe that this deal with Iran, this MOU, is a massive deal, massive victory, not just a victory, a massive victory. Let's see what evidence he has to support that theory.
The Iran war deal has been signed. U.S. forces are starting to leave the area. Guess
are they? Are they though? Because Trump didn't he say like he wasn't sure and like maybe we're gonna hang around for a little bit just to see what happens next? Are we leaving the Middle East? Or are you talking about the aircraft carriers and Navy that were, sent to the area by Donald Trump? I'm curious because I haven't seen any of that. Maybe I just missed it, but let me know. I'm not sure.
Prices were coming down, are still coming down at an accelerated rate, which is all good news.
Are they down to the point they were before the war, Tim? Just curious. Are they down to the point where we're going to start clapping like idiots because it's still higher than it was before the war? And you're trying to, again, portray that as some sort of victory where, again, it's higher than it was if we just never did this to begin with. You know what I mean?
News, and I would say, my friends, this is a victory.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was good that the war started. I'm not going to pretend that we're better off now. We don't know, actually. But what I will say is...
Wait a minute. So how the hell are you calling it a victory if you don't know if we're better off now, if you can't prove or say or show by any data point that we're better off now than we were before this war started? How are you calling this a victory? What evidence are we using here to call this? You just said yourself that you could not state if we were better off than before, which is, again, ridiculous. Of course, we're not. Of course, we're worse off now than we were just beforehand, considering the exorbitant prices people are paying. Again, the fact that this isn't a finalized deal by any stretch of the imagination yet, and we still have the potential for Israel to fuck this up, and this thing could be torn up in a heartbeat. But again, I don't know. Maybe he gives us some piece of evidence going forward. I doubt it, but maybe.
The media is all fake. It's all lies, and we are just chickens in a chicken coop being lied to.
Yeah, again, Jesus Christ, Tim. They're literally exact releases of the memorandum of understanding from both sides that line up directly, right? In some releases and some reports, they got, added stipulations and different paragraphs to a certain extent, but by all stretches of the imagination, what's been released and what was released, months prior by the Iranians seems to be what's in the deal. I don't think that, there's even anybody now attempting to try to lie to you. Everybody's just putting out the 14 points, right? And just reading them and going through what they mean and what's going to happen. So again, to what extent Tim's trying to prove that the mainstream media is lying, not that they don't, but again, I don't think on this in this situation, people just reporting on the 14 points is them lying about this to any to any extent.
That's why I get in trouble when I do journalism, because I've got some insider information pertaining to all that is going on.
Tim knows better than everybody that's been involved in the negotiations. He knows better than the Pakistanis. He knows better than the Qataris. He knows better than, I don't know, anybody that's, again, seen the 14 points being released by both the Iranian side and the White House. So apparently he's got inside knowledge that we don't know. Let's see what he can reveal.
So I'm going to get in trouble for talking about. Man, I'm going to burn my... guys, can I just say something real quick? For those that may not know me, maybe you're catching this for the first time. Maybe you've known me for a long time.
Well, can I just say, if it's your first time seeing Tim Pool, congratulations. I wish it was my first time seeing Tim Pool. And if you've been watching him for a long time, shame on you, and my apologies for what he's done to your brain. So just in case you fall into any one of those categories.
there is a game in media.
Yep.
And it's always been the case. And especially in the Trump era, largely the past 8 or so years, 10 years, the corporate machine, the political establishment were kind of upset that podcasts existed to sort of blurt out and explain what was really going on. Not just that, but they really didn't like the fact that people said crazy things that were not true. That everybody go nuts. Well, I get the brunt of it quite a bit because I do journalism. And
oh, fucking hell. Like, he still thinks at this point in the year of our Lord 2026, dim fool still thinks that he can portray himself as this like center person, this independent journalist, just, you know, sitting on the middle of the fence, looking over at the left, looking over at the right, and just kind of calling the balls and strikes as he sees them. Like, he still thinks that's happening. Who's believing that? Who does he think is still believing that in 2026, Tim? Come on, brother. Jesus Christ.
Well, you know,
he's literally built this platform off of the propaganda and lies that he was just talking about.
Even the Trump administration doesn't like it when I have sources who we're not leaking anything. You know, I wouldn't do that. I think,
get to the fucking point. Show us the evidence. Tell us what you know, who you know, what the information is. Like, anything to suggest this is a victory. Because you called it not only a victory, but a massive victory. And some minute and 35 seconds into this, I've yet to see anything suggesting that.
That's wrong, unless there's something very egregious. But the idea that, like, Trump has a meeting and then someone spills the beans and that meeting is not of public importance, they claim it is. We don't do that. We don't do that. But I'm trying to figure out what's going on in the world. What I can tell you right now is this was a victory.
Tell us. Yep.
The long,
please, fucking Christ, about time he got back into it.
Standing plan of the United States stretching back before Donald Trump. And I've been talking about this. I've been telling you the Iran war was not just some quick fire one-off. It was not that we were abruptly shocked into a conflict or Israel forced our hand. This was the plan the whole time. Now,
what? How does that even make sense? What do you mean by the whole time, Tim? Okay, can you be more specific? And again, you're just telling us to forget all of the detailed reporting that came out that proved and said and gave all us the details about the White House meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump's cabinet, and Mossad, and the little presentation they got. Like, I don't understand. And again, what were the achievements? If this was like this long-standing plan here, to achieve what? To achieve what? If it's to have Iran not have a nuclear weapon, that hasn't been agreed upon. That's something that seems to be talks that are going on into the future. If it was, going out and having the United States dig up the enriched uranium, that's not been stated by anybody on the Iranian side. I haven't heard that by anybody. And if anything, I've heard that it was going to be diluted. Right. So, again, what are the achievements? Right. Again, was it the plan this whole time to give them $300 billion? Was that part of the plan this whole time, too? I'm curious. What's this plan you speak of?
I will stress this. I'm not saying the U.S. got everything it wanted. I'm saying this plan has
everything or anything. And everything or anything. Can we specify between those two things? Everything is everything. Anything is what we're talking about here. Did we get anything that we wanted? Because we're struggling to find here in this chat, right? And anybody else that's, taking a deep dive and look into this, trying to figure out where we get the benefit. Like, what is one point of benefit that we get out of this? I can't see anything.
Been in place and probably extends well before Donald Trump, as I have stated before, based on my analysis of what's going on. I'm going to break it down for you, but the story right now.
I fucking wish you would, and I wish you'd hurry up, because we're now 2 minutes and 30 seconds into this video of pure nonsensical bullshit. So it would be wonderful if you could just give us one piece of data to suggest that we are coming out of this with more benefit. Like this war was a benefit to us. Please, just one piece of evidence.
The media is apoplectic. Donald Trump lost. They're playing these clips where Trump says one thing, but then changes his mind. And I think that is all fair to point out. But here's the point. Surface level.
They're playing clips where Donald Trump says one thing and then completely changes his mind and says another thing, right? And you think he's going to say that's not what happened. And then he just goes on to say, yeah, that's fair. That's fair to point out. I actually have no problem with that. That's pretty fucked up, actually. Makes things pretty difficult to understand. We get the president of the United States going out there saying one thing, right? Saying one thing to the entire world and then immediately contradicting himself in the next statement, next interview, or next Truth Social post. And then everybody's back to square one of being like, okay, what the fuck is happening? You know what I mean? So he stated that just to agree with it, which is strange for him to put into this clip again, trying to detail that this is some massive victory. And yes, 2 minutes and 42 seconds in, 0 pieces of evidence to suggest why it's a victory.
I call it. If you are just a regular run-of-the-mill person, working class Joe, and you turn on the news, you are going to believe that Donald Trump blundered us into a war, caused massive economic damage, didn't get anything that he wanted, and then left with his tail between his legs.
Seems pretty accurate. All of those things, everything that you just stated seems rather accurate. So if people are tuning in and that's what they're getting out of this, they seem to be getting the correct thing. They're watching it closely. They're looking at it the right way. If that's what they're getting from all of that. But I'm guessing Tim Pool's going to now try to say that none of those things happened. I'm curious why he would just stipulate to all those things. Let him repeat that list one more time.
The news, you are going to believe that Donald Trump blundered us into a war.
Absolutely blundered us into a war.
Caused massive economic damage.
Absolutely caused massive economic damage. There's no refuting that, right? Absolutely no refuting the damage that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz caused. Closure of the Strait of Hormuz caused only because of the war that we enacted. Thus, the problems, the economic hardship placed upon the world, placed right at the feet of Donald Trump because of what he started, right? So again, continue. What's the next one?
Didn't get anything that he wanted, and then
absolutely didn't get anything he wanted. Didn't take out their missile capabilities, didn't take out their drone capabilities, didn't eradicate their military like he said he was gonna, didn't have the overthrow of the government by the people of Iran, didn't have the regime change by any stretch of the imagination as how they were, expecting it to go. All of those things, none of those. And obviously this, the nuclear enrichment, the enrichment problem still hasn't been hashed out, still hasn't been detailed or agreed upon, even though they had already before said that they weren't going after a nuclear weapon. So now they're just kind of using that and wielding that as like this piece of leverage over Donald Trump, which he has to buy now. So either way you put this, we're in a shitty situation, way shittier than the JCPOA by, levels, many levels.
Left with his tail between his legs.
And they did
watch
that
this show.
He also
I'm going to tell you.
He absolutely left with his tail between his legs because he's now trying to figure out a way to pay his way out of this. And whether that's coming from Saudi funds, Qatari funds, wherever it's fucking coming from, at the end of the day, it's ending up with Iran, right? So the people that we were trying to destroy are now going to be enriched. So that's Donald Trump having to figure out a way, because he knows he can't do it militarily, to find a way to pay them and reward them to say, okay, let's just go back to maybe giving you even more power now, where after 60 days you can start charging tolls and fees to ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. So again, Tim, I'm still waiting, pal. How is this better? How is this beneficial?
Things they probably hurt my career for telling you, because the nature of journalism is, well, if I want to get access to big events, if I want to sit down with the world's elites, if I want to secure...
Tell me he's pulling I have inside information from a really deep source inside the government, but I can't tell you anything about it because if I told you, I would no longer get invited to these parties. I'd no longer have access to this, to this plant that I have inside the federal government that's giving me inside information. So he's got this whole video, right, about this piece of information, about this inside scoop that he's got that would detail this to be a massive victory, right? And then some 3 minutes and 15 seconds into it, he's pulling I'd love to tell you about my girlfriend, about my beautiful blonde girlfriend who's 6'2" and plays these sports, but she goes to a different school. Unfortunately, yeah, the school is, I'm forgetting the name of the school at this point in time. I also forget where it is. And yeah, I forget how to get there as well. So don't ask me directions, but she does exist. And she just goes to that school, that other one that you know of, about, on the other side of the tracks there. No, that other one, but she's beautiful and she's a 10 and she definitely does exist. Like that's quite literally what Tim Pool is pulling right now. Like, oh yeah, I got this unbelievable source, but if I revealed what he revealed to me, it would fuck up the dinner parties that I get to go to.
Or powerful contracts, which will expand the show. That's not about truth. It's about the appropriate message. And we don't do that here at Timcast, which causes us problems. Now, you may be saying to yourself, some of you hate me. You say, yeah, right, Tim's a shill. Okay, dude. Well, you know what? Live in whatever fake world you want to live in, because I'm going to lay it down for you. This war was planned a long time ago. Trump had nothing to do with it. In fact, he may have had something to do with it in the first.
Trump had nothing to do with it. All right, we'll end up. That's just got to be one of the fucking most ludicrous statements I've heard Tim make at this point. The president of the United States, right? The commander-in-chief of our armed forces, the guy who directly sat down with a meeting with Mossad and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically about enacting this war, again, a war that we weren't involved in or engaged in under Joe Biden or Donald Trump's first administration, right? None of those things that were taking place. But that guy you're saying had no involvement? Like, what? I don't even know how you could possibly, like, even try to push that to your audience if you don't believe it. Like, if you were a propagandist, like, I wouldn't be able to say that with a straight face. Like, of course it was his decision. Of course he has something to do with it. But again, there's 32 more minutes in that video. I'm not going to subject you to one more second, but just so you know, there are 32 more minutes to that video where Tim Pool tries to outline somehow that this was, again, a massive victory, not just a victory. But what do you say we dive on from Tim Pool? Because too much of Tim Pool just it'll rot your brain. But there's a lot to get at as far as this headline story is concerned anyway, because like I said, Moscow had a rough night and a rough morning, ladies and gentlemen. It says here, the Sun reports Moscow under siege. Ukraine unleashes over 500 drones, largest attack in 2 years. I want to say it's the largest attack of the war by Ukraine as far as obviously into Moscow. But again, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong on that. But we're going to go over all the angles, all the footage, all the reports. I got a few videos here from Preston Stewart to like I said, the Sun here. We got Kate from Kharkiv posted a couple things. Jay from Kiev, or Jay in Kiev, excuse me, posted a couple things, and we're just going to go over as much as all of yeah, Jesus Christ. At some point, I'll get this English down, I promise. At some point, the lips will start working, and then the words will start flowing correctly out of my mouth. But we're just going to go over all the footage that we can compile here and get all of the details down. My apologies. I think I just had like a seizure of the lips. I'm not sure what you call that in medical terms. But all right, let's just dive into this. I don't think there's any commentary on this one. I do believe that it's just kind of a compilation of all the different angles. So like I said, I just want to see if we could jump through this, and then we'll go to Jay in Kiev to see what he has posted. He might have a little bit more information, but this is some wild footage coming out of this, ladies and gentlemen, to see the amount of strikes, to see the amount of damage, to see the amount of, plumes of smoke over Moscow, and, the residents of Moscow taking the video, and, it just looks like a hellscape, right? And it's again, this war being brought closer and closer to the doorsteps of the Russians. And now they're starting to feel the full force here of the Ukrainian capabilities as far as drones and obviously missiles. So what do you say we just dive into a little bit of this footage again of the strike by Ukraine in Moscow? This is one of the craziest things that I've seen. I've heard of tank tosses as far as turrets. I've never heard of oil storage tank turret tosses. But again, you're about to see one here. Check this out. Look at it. That is quite literally the entire top of an oil storage tank being blown God knows how many feet in the air from a Ukrainian drone strike. So, like I said, I'm sure you've probably seen time or two a tank and the turret being tossed off a tank. If you hit it in the correct spot, if you get the ammunition to explode in there, you can sometimes get that turret of the tank to pop off and sometimes go hundreds of feet in the air. Never seen an oil storage tank do that same thing there, but you'll see several different angles of this one. I'll turn down the music and we'll just kind of narrate while this goes on in the background. You can see the different points of strikes and devastation here. Let me see. Is there commentary on this? I'm not sure. I forget at this point. I don't think so. No, it's just kind of off. But they go on. It says Moscow was engulfed in black smoke today after Ukraine's biggest attack of the war on the Russian capital. And again, you can see the building in the background smoking after it's being hit. Hard to tell if that was jammed, if that went and it was shot off target, if that was debris, if the Ukrainians have some information that the FSB or some sort of military leadership lives in that portion of the building. Hard to say at this point. But, this is the footage coming in from, people all around Moscow. As you can see, the drones kind of flying slow and steady through the sky with no Russian anti-aircraft defense to be seen in and around the area. There's a few of them that you can see shot down on video. This says air defenses missiles shot down multiple incoming drones, redirected several to hit residential buildings. As we said there, shattering glass and igniting fire. So like we talked about in previous shows, the ability to spoof these drones and the ability to jam the drones a lot of the times will involve them going off target and hitting things that they weren't specifically targeted in hitting. So again, the utilization of the Russian propagandist on Twitter and obviously the Russian propagandist in Russia themselves about the residential buildings that have been hit. I mean, again, take all of that with a grain of salt. It's hard to tell at this moment, like I said, if it was spoofed, if it was blocked, if it was jammed, or if in fact the Ukrainian intelligence does have information on who's staying in that particular spot, who occupies that particular portion of the building, and if they have ties to the military, it could be looked at as a justifiable military target. So again, when all of the information comes in, you'll probably know more. But first guess is a lot of those were spoofed or jammed drones that were off target. Considering what looked to be the main target of the Ukrainians, which was the oil refinery. So again, anything else that hit anything else was most likely, obviously cannot confirm that to 100%, but was either spoofed or droned. And spoofed meaning that the Russians could basically take control over that drone. Again, whether or not they have those specific capabilities as far as the weapons that were used or shot up or the drones that were used by Ukraine remains to be seen. But obviously that's something that we've seen in the past and know is a possibility. So again, here's just some more footage from these strikes. There's one of the drones being shot down there, you can see. And obviously the debris. So that's another option, right? A lot of people talking about the debris also can have huge impact as well. Well, clearly that target for that drone wasn't that specific building that it hit. Right? It got shot down. The bigger portion of the debris of the drone struck that building, but Russia will absolutely try to utilize that, the footage and people in and around that and whatever building that it hit to their propaganda advantage and say that this was a specific strike, a specific targeted by the Ukrainian drones, when obviously the footage shows a different situation. Let's see if there's any other angles. There's a few other angles of the drones coming in. There's another. Check out this kind of shot of the skyline, which is crazy. I think it's coming up after this. That's that oil storage facility, oil storage tank being blown in the sky again. But check out this next clip. Like this is, wow, big explosion there from a strike. I don't know if there's sound. Let me see if there's any sound on that one. There'll be sound. We'll see these clips. Like I said, I put together a bunch of these different clips, so we'll get ones with sound if they do exist. Here's another angle of that top. You can see the top to the oil storage tank up there. I mean, I don't know how tall these red and white stacks are, but you can see the considerable distance above that smokestack that fucking top is. So a pretty big explosion needed to make that happen. Let me see here if we can go on. Yeah, this is the one that I was talking about. Look at the skyline. Right? Imagine being a Russian citizen. Imagine thinking that you're winning this war, being told that you're winning this war and how much territory you've gained and, how much you've denazified Ukraine. And don't worry, we have the best air defenses, best military capabilities on earth. And then you wake up in the morning and you're fucking looking at this site. I mean, this is Moscow, guys. This is supposed to be the most heavily defended territory, definitely in Russia, if not on the fucking face of the earth. Especially right now as they're engaged in a full-scale war with Ukraine. And this is the result of a massive Ukrainian drone strike. I think I heard somewhere in the neighborhood of over 1,000 different drones being used. Don't quote me on that number. I believe I heard that, and we'll go through the different reports as well. But let me see here. There was this one I wanted to go through. Who was this one by? Yeah, this was by Sakakamis. He was detailing another couple angles from this, some other details from this strike. So I just want to play a couple minutes of this. Like I said, we're just going to go through all of the coverage, all of the angles, all of the details that we can get from this very substantial and successful Ukrainian drone strike in and around Moscow. Check this out.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to start today with the latest drone strike by Ukraine on Russia. And once again, it's a Moscow oil refinery which was hit. Judging by the video, hit multiple times. As you can see, there are multiple fires and plumes of smoke here. Looks like at least 7. Actually, likely more because that smoke is very thick. And remember, Moscow is the most heavily defended Russian city. So it is impressive that you
look at that. I mean, look at that fucking footage. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, waking up as a Moscowite, this is not what you're expecting to see. right? I'm sure they've heard about the St. Petersburg strikes. They've obviously seen the Moscow oil refinery targeted before, but to wake up and see this out of your window is got to be a reality check, a big shock to the people in and around the city at the ease in which, like the frequency at which, right? To say that after 4+ years of war that they were able to sneak one by, I'm sure the Russian propaganda could do a lot to try to disguise that, but not if it's going to be happening more frequently, and not just more frequently, but to this extent. It's going to be increasingly more difficult for the Russian propaganda to portray themselves as defenders of the Russian people and being able to keep them safe.
Again. It's reported that several drones were actually shot down for a change, but clearly many did get through. Now this one here is my favourite video because you can actually see the oil tank lid being lifted up by the fireball after the impact.
That's fucking crazy footage. Crazy footage. One more time.
Because you can actually see the oil tank lid being lifted up by the fireball.
That's nuts. Absolutely insane.
After the impact. So we don't get turret tosses anymore, but here, a nice oil tank toss, which is fantastic and just as good. As a Brucey bonus, if you look behind the oil tank toss, you can actually see some trails from air defense missiles that were launched and missed. These SAMs coming from...
talking about, I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen, but you can see these kind of plumes of white smoke here, which were possibly from the anti-defense missiles that were shot up and obviously didn't have the desired impact, the desired effect there.
Very close to the refinery, so it has its own dedicated panzers here.
That shit.
Here's a Google map view of a Moscow refinery. It has a capacity of up to 12 million tons per year. As a result of Ukraine's attacks on Russian oil,
12 million tons per year. And again, I may be off a little bit on my statistics, but I do believe that it's responsible for at least, I think it was up to 40%. I think it was somewhere between 25 and 40% of all of the, Moscow's use of oil and gas comes from that Moscow oil refinery. So obviously a very substantial part of the way that Moscow functions. And if that could be put down for days, weeks, months, it's obviously going to have a huge impact on the city.
They've reported 30% of the capacity overall in Russia is down. Not to mention, we've seen evidence of severe fuel shortages in the country as well because of Ukraine's continuous strikes. So this campaign by Ukraine...
Again, this is detailing what it's supposed to be the Russian air defenses in place. We've shown this a couple times before. So obviously not having the desired effect, like I said, or they're not up to their standards. They're not actually functioning. They're not actually in place, whatever it may be, definitely not doing their job. But let's see if we can go to this Jay in Kyiv thread that he posted here. And there was a couple other pieces of footage that he was showing from this. Let me show this one. This is kind of crazy, detailing the amount of smoke. This is just kind of a panning over the city view there. Check this one out. Is there any sound on this? No sound on this one. But you can see the substantial plumes of smoke and obviously the huge fires raging in the background from the successful drone strikes. And again, there was a bunch of angles, a bunch of these posted. Let me see. There was this one. So obviously detailing several different strikes. You can see that's kind of a wide-ranging area. You can see one here on the left just kind of started to getting going. That's not quite as black or as dark as the other ones. And one in the middle. Obviously a couple here on the right-hand side. And then as he panned the camera, you can see even more. So a pretty substantial strike here by any regard. So there was that one. And let me see. I think there was a couple more of these too. How do you get back out of this? There was that. There was this one. Here's another one. It's not what we showed before. And then, like I said, I think there was this first one that I didn't show here. Let me play this one from the beginning. So again, some residents in the area nearby reacting to the sounds of the gunfire going off, trying to shoot down those drones, and obviously the impact and devastation of the drone strikes there as well. Let's see what else. I'll go to Jay in Kyiv and see if there's anything else being posted. This was the reaction of Moscovites in Moscow, live broadcast from the scene. Let's see what their reaction is. Check this one out.
Прямое включение, друзья, массовый налет дронов.
Live broadcast, friends, a mass drone attack by
Украины,
Ukraine.
горит Капотня.
Kapotnya is on fire.
Садовод горит.
The Gardner is on fire.
НПЗ
The oil refinery was blown
взорвали.
up.
Небо было
The sky was completely
все
clear,
открытое, вот оно
and now it's filled with the mushroom right
заполнилось
here.
вот этим вот грибом.
Look at the
Видите,
smoke.
до сих пор полыхает.
You can still see it's blazing.
На улице
It
жутко
stinks terribly out here,
воняет. Но я надеюсь, все живы, все
but I hope everybody is alive and well.
целые. Дай бог сил вам, ребята. Но это, конечно, печально. Я успел соскочить с МКАДа. Там была просто огромнейшая пробка.
They managed to get off the main road there, and there was a massive traffic jam.
Но я быстренько успел ливнуть. Так что берегите себя и своих близких. Москва.
So again, this is something that's not supposed to be legal for the Russians to be doing. They're not supposed to be detailing the abilities for the Ukrainians to strike or detailing the efficacy of the strikes and posting that on Telegram or social media, wherever this was originally posted. So again, taking his life into his own hands, but happens at such frequency that the Russian military, the Russian government would have a very difficult time cracking down on everybody that's posting those videos. But that doesn't mean that they won't make examples out of some people. Let's see if there was any other angles that we'd missed. Jane Keefe says it's not only Ukrainian drones in the skies of Moscow this morning, but many cruise missiles as well. Ukraine's homegrown Bars missiles with a speed of 800 kilometers an hour bring civility to the savages of Moscow's hellscape. Ukrainian armed forces is full of surprises. So let's see what he's got here as far as this clip. Wow. Jesus Christ. You see how quick that went by? Look at that. You can just see it in the camera here. Look at that shot. Watch how quickly it's gone. Catching back up to it there. Back in the background. Another one, more coming in. There was at least 3 or 4 in that one that I saw, but let's see here. There was other ones, this post as well. So the drones and missiles are flying, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if there's anything else posted. Here's another one. As Russia remains uninterested in ending the war, Ukraine will continue to deprive Moscow of the tools it uses to wage it. Russia believed war was something it could export. Ukraine's ever-expanding strikes on Russia's oil industry are ensuring that the consequences are brought home. Here's another angle of, again, that oil storage tank blowing up. And there's not too many times that you could see this, I don't think. This is probably going to go down in history as one of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the more substantial clips, the more memorable clips, the more historic clips of this fight. So again, check this one out. Unreal. Look at that shit. Absolutely fucking insane. I mean, I shudder to think what that top weighs and how high it went and what forces you would need in order to make it get that high. Here's another one. A Moscow resident brags about the morning view from his window. And again, it's got to be a shock to them. It's got to be a shock to them to see this shit.
Прикиньте, утром вот так вот просыпаешься, не от будильника. Это такая панорама страшная. Офигеть.
Crazy.
И очередь километровая.
Again, thank you guys. If you're just joining us, we're just going through some of the footage, well, all of the footage that we can compile here of the successful Ukrainian drone strikes and missile strikes on Moscow, the oil refinery there. So again, we're looking at Jay and Kiev here and some of the posts that he have. We just went through some of the Sun's posting. We have Kate from Kharkiv. Let's see what she's got posted here. Just again, to go through all of the different angles and pieces of footage coming out from that as well. Let's start here, and then we'll just work our way up. This is Babe, wake up. Mysterious drones are bombing Moscow again. Here's the photograph from that. So this is early on when it was taking place. This was 16 hours ago. Also reported drones over Moscow right now. Russian war returns back home. And again, you can see the what looks to be relatively slow flying Ukrainian drones just making their way slowly but steadily to their target. Let me put this on the screen. Play this real quick.
Новый какой-то, такого не было огромного. Очень огромный.
slowly but surely making its way to the target. You can't even hear any air defenses in the background going off at that period of time, which should be telling for the Russian people. This says people in Moscow have zero survival skills. Who honestly goes outside to gawk at a strike drones buzzing around like this? They still have so much to learn. And I think, well, that's like, I think we explained this in one of the recent shows, right? I think we said on one of the recent strikes in Crimea, they were out there filming because they recognize what the targets are. They understand that the Ukrainians are going after justifiable military targets, oil infrastructure, and that if in fact these drones are, put off target somehow, that it's probably because of the ability to spoof or to jam the drones, and that they're either going to get shot down or they're going to make it their way to their target. So again, that's probably a little bit of the comfortableness, the ability that's been afforded to the Russians of kind of feeling comfortable in this fight, along with knowing what the actual intended targets are of the Ukrainians themselves. And it's not so much the civilian infrastructure or the civilians themselves, but again, the justifiable military targets. Again, it's still going to be wild for them to see that, just nothing being done about it, just slowly flying to its target. Moscow oil refinery is currently on fire for the second time this week. You have to wonder if everyday Russians are cool with Putin's private residence being better protected than their actual capital, says Kate from Kharkiv. And again, we played that angle. Let's see if there's another one. Moscow's largest oil refinery, supposedly the most protected refinery in Russia, is getting humiliatingly pounded for the second time this week. And here's just, again, that broad overview of the Moscow skyline, which has got to be a fucking scary sight to see if you're a Moscovite. Because this is not only showing intent, willingness, ability, but also the effectiveness of these strikes, right? This is showing for the second time this week, it's being targeted. It can be targeted, and they can get through the Russian air defenses, whatever in place, to cause this amount of damage. And it's only a matter of time before this war is, full-fledged on the doorstep of these Russians. And hopefully it gives them a little cause for concern. You just hear in the background what sounds like some small arms fire trying to take these drones down, which obviously didn't have much impact or effect. Here's another one detailing the amount of smoke billowing out of the Moscow oil refinery into the skyline. Absolutely crazy to see. But again, this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when you decide to enact a full-scale war on your neighbor for absolutely no fucking reason whatsoever, to make up the denazification, to make up the NATO bullshit, all of the other things that he says is the reason he enacted this war. You don't get to just do that, start lobbing your drones and missiles into populated areas and absolutely feel no ramifications or impact yourselves from this war. You don't get to remove yourselves from the ability to be struck back. That's not what happens. So again, fighting fire with fire, and Ukrainians steadily bringing the fight to Moscow, steadily bringing the fight to Russia, and making them feel the pain. Let's see if there was anything else here, because I believe there was a post by Magyar's Birds. Yeah, this one right here. This is posted by 414 Magyar's Birds. A Magyar's update on Moscow this morning. It says, Triptych 17, 16, and 18, nice and tight. All of the ingredients for revenge borscht. Moscow will go down, not just on a beach in Crimea. The Kremlin understands it too. There are fewer and fewer untouchable or unreachable zones. The freedom-loving Ukrainian birds' recipe for revenge, borscht, fierce but pragmatic screening and destruction of the enemy's fuel, energy, and defense industrial infrastructure as the source of funding and sustainment for the war against Ukraine. Suppression of air defenses and disposal of enemy manpower. And yes, judging by history, there should be enough time before September 14th to 18th, 1812 versus 2026, when Moscow burned and when power will once again be reaffirmed through elections, with Ukraine holding the absolute moral high ground over the barbarians. Pilots of the 1st Separate Center, USF, and the 9th Battalion Keros of the 414th USF Brigade Magyar's Birds, and the 413th USF Regiment Raid, and the 412th USF Brigade Nemesis, together with the OSF and the SSU and the DIU, carried out a third massive strike against the Moscow oil refinery within the past 30 days. The conveyor belt of retribution keeps running. follow USF Live Results, USF Online Dashboard, and he gives you a little place for you to follow them. And that is posted along with some of the footage that we've been looking at of some of these successful strikes. So that's the head of the Magyar's Birds there, the statement from Magyar's Birds, letting the Russians know exactly what's coming to them. And again, I support every word of it. So let's see here. There's a couple other ones I wanted to go into. Should we do this one first or this one first? Because I got a Preston Stewart video. I have, yeah, I think that's about it. We'll do this one first, and then we'll end on some sanity. Okay, so we'll try to get this this idiot out of the way really quickly. I know this guy frustrates a lot of people, but when the same asshole that was involved in the tenant media debacle and receiving money basically straight from the Kremlin to continue pushing his right-wing, ridiculous, pro-Russian propaganda that he was, pushing at the time, to watch Benny Johnson sit here and gawk and be in awe of the fact that Moscow is now in flames because of the war that they enacted is something that I'm going to revel in. Okay, something that I want to witness myself, and I apologize for making you go through this with me, but only a couple minutes of this is necessary to see just how upset and shocked he is to see the sites and the videos and the angles that we've all watched now. To see Benny Johnson in his home territory of the Kremlin, taking the impacts and seeing the effects like this, and the look on his face, the way that he's speaking about it. Again, I want to revel in this. I want to make sure that I bottle this up for a time down the line where we could open it up and just shake it up like a bottle of champagne and celebrate either when some political figure takes his last breath, or when another political figure is inevitably defeated in his full-scale war. When either of those two things happen, then we'll pop this like a bottle of champagne. But here's Benny Johnson, and he's just, again, in awe. He's in shock of the fact that Moscow is now burning and that oil rain is now burning down or pouring down on Moscow, much like we saw in some places in and around Crimea beforehand. So again, just a couple minutes of this Russian propagandist, and I just want to see the look on his face when he looks at all of the footage of Moscow engulfed in flames. So what do you say we get into it? Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I very much appreciate all you guys that stick with me to the end, as we typically utilize the last half of the show for our Ukraine segment to keep up and to get up to speed on what's happening between Ukraine and Russia. So I really do appreciate you guys for not only sticking with the domestic aspect of the show, but also when we go over the foreign policy, the foreign aspects of our coverage as well. So very appreciative to all of you guys. Thank you to everybody that's sending in super chats, donations, super stickers, utilizing the Venmo up in the corner. Like I said, we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul to get you guys to contribute to the NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade campaign. Like I said, we're willing to make those sacrifices here on those channels to make sure that we can give and be a part of these very substantial campaigns. Obviously, it's an honor and a privilege to do so. But again, we do normally see the results of that in not having the biggest community on YouTube. So thank you guys so much that are, doing dual duty, representing and still contributing here to YouTube and to this channel, as well as the different campaigns that we're involved in. So a big shout out and a massive show of appreciation to you guys. All right, let's dive into a minute of this asshole, and then we'll dive on to a little bit of Preston Stewart and get some more details as far as the Ukrainian strike inside of Moscow. Let's take a look.
Moscow is ablaze this morning in images that look like they are out of a video game or a Bond movie. Check this out. This is a massive oil drum that had the top.
A massive oil drum? Jesus Christ, this guy is just more stupid than I thought he was. A massive oil drum. Does that look like an oil drum to you? An oil drum, which is a very specific thing, ladies and gentlemen, the drum that oil typically comes in, and I'm sure you're picturing it in your head right now. This not being an oil drum, this being an oil storage tank. Okay, much different, much bigger, much larger than an oil drum. But, we'll let Benny Johnson flub around and fuck around until he finds the right words.
Blown off of it from a Ukrainian drone attack.
Sure was.
Biggest drone attack in human history, and the most sophisticated drone attack, striking deep.
Is that true? I don't have, I'm not sure. To my knowledge, have there been larger Russian attacks on Ukraine and into Kyiv? Is he correct in stating it's the largest drone attack in human history? Again, let me know in the chat. Something smells a little fishy as far as that's concerned as well. I know there was a shitload of drones. I understand that it was definitely one of the largest, if not the largest, attack by Ukraine, but I'm just not sure if it was the largest in general. You could be right. I'm not sure. Again, I'm more than willing to give Ukraine the credit for that. I'm just not sure how historically accurate that is, because we know that Russia has time and time again launched substantial drone and missile attacks into different parts of Ukraine, specifically Kyiv. But let me know in the chat.
Into the heart of Moscow, the oil infrastructure in Moscow. Again, the dome blown completely off of an oil.
Look at his face. I love it. That right there. Can somebody bottle this up for me? Can somebody just bottle this picture up for me? Benny Johnson's blank stare while he watches the fucking roof, the entire top of an oil storage tank be blown fucking sky high inside of Moscow. Please, can somebody just, maybe a screenshot? I don't want to, mess around and click the wrong buttons here. Next thing you know, I'll probably end the live stream, knowing me. And if you could possibly, send this to me, that would be fantastic, because that seems to be the shot of the day there. The blank stare on the Russian propagandist's face as the Russian oil storage tank gets blown sky high by Ukrainian drones. Chalk it up for the good guys.
Drum. Storage drum.
Look, not a fucking drum, you asshole. You absolute twit. It is not an oral, it's not a storage drum. Shut up.
That straight into the sky. Just insanity.
Insanity.
Look at the image. Look at that.
Just insanity. Fucking insanity that Russia started a full-scale war, and now they're feeling the effects of that full-scale war that they didn't manage to finish in the 72 hours that they said it was going to be finished in. Insanity.
That's a real photo.
No, that's fake. No, it's fake. Of course it's real, you asshole. That's what everybody's been reporting on all morning.
This is wild. There's other just absolutely insane imagery of very sophisticated, very large drones striking into the heart of what looks like.
And how long, didn't watch this without you guys, but how long before he starts talking about how this is civilian infrastructure, right? How long before he says that this is like, war crimes, again, without recognizing the Russian ability to, like we continue to say, spoof and jam these drones, and obviously not recognizing what is the clear intended target, which is the Moscow oil refinery, and that these were either, mechanically deficient, were jammed, were spoofed, something else, and this wasn't the specific or intended target. Or, like I said, it is still a possibility that in some of these cases that the Ukrainian intelligence had some knowledge of people staying, living in these buildings, in these sections of the buildings, the Russian military. I'm not saying that I've heard that. That's clear speculation, but I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibility. We have seen before the Ukrainians utilize drones to target specific areas of buildings where either the FSB or some other, affiliated portion or part of the military was utilizing that space type of thing. So again, all of those things possible as well.
Civilian infrastructure, civilian buildings. So
Jesus Christ, talk about spot on. I knew that was coming soon. I knew it wasn't going to be far behind.
Terror campaign here.
Oh yeah, terror
campaign. Again, Ukraine.
Not utilizing or recognizing the fact that, the Russians night after night after night have struck nothing but civilian infrastructure, basically zero justifiable military targets being targeted by the Russian military, but every night still attacking hospitals, schools, railways, different apartment complexes, you name it. But, those are their specific intended targets, not so much, again, mechanical malfunctions, spoofing, or again the jamming that led to it going off target, going off its course.
My stance on this. I'm not going to pick sides here. I don't like Ukraine. I don't like Russia.
Bull fucking shit. Okay? Bullshit. There's no way you can't like Russia, who, again, was responsible for padding your bank account to the tunes of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that you didn't give back, even after you found that it came from the Kremlin, didn't return, didn't donate to charity, right? Didn't uplift or support some family in need or donate it to the homeless veterans in the country. Nothing like that. No, you kept it. So I'm sure you have some, underlying admiration for the country of Russia, especially the way that you report on all this, right? to what degree you decide to report on the, the war crimes or the strikes on civilian infrastructure by the Russians is clear in your content. But again, really quick to post this video, really quick to put this one up online.
I wish both nations would just fall into the sea. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this war. Everybody's sick of this war. And right as President Trump signs a peace deal with Iran, we get this.
Funny how they're getting sick of this war just as it starts creeping up to the Russians' doorstep, right? So I'll just go on a little bit where he starts getting even more shocked by the footage, right? Let me see. I'll play it. Where is he? He's playing the footage here. I'll play it here.
So this is the footage that he's sharing. This is the footage that Zelensky's sharing. So he's obviously very proud of it. Let's go ahead and watch. You can see here, oil refineries, obviously something that would be highly prone to a drone attack, an incendiary attack, something that's going to
Wow, great insight. Great fucking insight by Benny Johnson. An oil refinery might be, they might be not wanting a drone attack. They might not want an incendiary attack on an oil refinery, something that, may not be, wise to have happen. They don't want to see happen. Great insight as far as that's concerned, because, explosions, flammable shit, not two great mixtures.
Oh, its top. You can see just the absolute black, smoldering smoke.
Look at them.
Reports of oil residue effectively raining down all over Moscow now as the people wake up to this horror. Whew.
Look at his face. Look at him. He's like, holy shit, how is this happening to my friend, my pals, my comrades?
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. This is bad.
And again, you'll be hard-pressed to find any videos of the Russian strikes on Kyiv where Benny Johnson is this flustered, right? You're not going to be able to find a video where Benny Johnson is calling this bad or saying that both sides and both countries should fall into the sea just based off of the Russian attacks on Ukraine that we've seen. Not going to find it. Won't happen. But you will find him within about an hour or so of these attacks going on there to show his displeasure for the the Russian capital being ablaze, and that the Ukrainians have the continued ability to strike that Moscow oil refinery as well. But, just a couple moments, color up of moments here where he's looking very disheveled and concerned about this happening. Look at him.
So where exactly
Speechless.
Is this, and what happens next? I mean, reports are that more members of parliament in Russia are now calling for a total scorched earth attack against Ukraine. Obviously,
What do you think they've been doing the whole time, dickhead? What the fuck do you think they've been doing the whole? Do you think they've been holding back some capabilities in reserve? They just, they really don't want to end this war now. They have the capability to do it, but they're just not going to enact it unless, somebody crosses that line. No, you dickbag. They've been sending in drones and hypersonic missiles and shit, like I said, into Kyiv and many parts of Ukraine for over 4 years now. So again, this is just, the norm of what Russia does that you don't make videos on. But this time, again, where we do see this substantial strike in and around Moscow, you're fucking lickety split on there with the camera.
Geopolitics of this is that there's going to be, whoa, that's crazy. Look at that. Wow.
He's literally speechless. He doesn't know what to say. Usually you can't shut the fucking kid up. You know what I mean? Usually you can't shut this guy's mouth. Here, he just doesn't know what to say. There's videos going on in the background, the smoke plumes being seen, the drones being fired, and he just doesn't know what to say about it. All he can say is, wow, this is bad. Oh, shit. Fuck, are my checks going to stop coming? Does this mean the Kremlin's going to stop paying me? Does this mean the fucking rubles are going to start bouncing? That's what's going on in his head.
This footage is insane.
This shit's insane. It's fucking insane. Wow, insane is this footage? It's just so insane.
The drones flying in, and then absolutely no interceptors, right? Whoa.
See how
and nothing
shocked
is.
He doesn't know what to say about it, and he's shocked that there's no, interceptors being fucking thrown up there. You're not seeing, you're not seeing anti-missile drones. You're not seeing. I don't even think he's hearing or playing the small arms fire of Russians trying to shoot these drones down. So he's like, how is this happening over Moscow? You know that's going through his head right now. How is this Moscow? Supposed to be the most heavily defended airspace, yada, yada, yada. Definitely the Moscow oil refinery, supposed to be one of the most heavily defended areas in Russia. How is this happening where these relatively slow-moving, slow-flying Ukrainian drones are just lumbering their way to their targets without any interdiction, without any interception by Russian air defenses? And that is the look that you're seeing on Benny Johnson's face right now.
Nothing's stopping them. I mean, they seem relatively slow moving, and nothing stops these Ukrainian drones. Whoa. Oh, maybe that did actually just get intercepted.
Yep. Can you clap? Clap like a seal. You got one of them. One of them's down. Again, this is after already 7 minutes of him playing extensive footage of the smoke and oil burning and fires raging. But he's gonna be really excited that he just got that clip of the one drone being taken down.
That's wild footage, man.
She.
Wow. Straight into the side of that building. Look at that. And that's got to be an apartment building. That's got to be that's not military.
Again, on that one specific clip, and this is just, again, watching that very, very short clip, but it looks like that drone intended to go over that building. So I don't know if that was, some mechanical malfunction on that where it couldn't really distinguish the height of the building or whatnot. But it did seem like the intention for that drone was to go over the building, and it just caught the top of it. Again, whether or not there is reason to believe there's an FSB member or, some of the Russian intelligence or military officers or generals that live in that department complex, again, we're not going to know that for some time. But to me, on that one specific piece of footage, almost looks like the drone was trying to go over that building and maybe misjudge the height of it or whatnot. But at least on that one, that's kind of my opinion on that.
Wow. Straight into the side of the building. Look at that.
Just barely catches the top of that building. You know what I mean? So if the intended target was on the other side, and like I said, it just was unable to get the appropriate height off the ground or to distinguish what height it was at, I'm sure those things are, things that happen pretty regularly, pretty frequently, especially when you're talking about the rapid advancements of this drone technology. I'm sure there's bugs. I'm sure there's things to work on and kinks to work out and stuff like that. And these things do tend to happen. But whether or not that's what's going on there is, like I said, right hand up. I don't know. That's pure speculation. And I'm sure if it is, in fact, some sort of piece of intelligence that the Ukrainians had and they were intended strikes, we'll hear about that and we'll get the information to kind of corroborate that. But like I said, that's just right hand up my pure opinion, speculation on that one.
And that's got to be an apartment building. That's got to be that's not military infrastructure. That's residential apartment building.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Mr. Kremlin here is really worried about civilian infrastructure 4+ years on into this war, where he hasn't made a single fucking video detailing the Russian strikes on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure inside of Ukraine.
That is a crazy shot.
But all right, we'll dive off that. You can see the shock and horror in his face, which makes me extremely fucking happy. As sadistic as that sounds, I'm sorry, not sorry, okay? After witnessing what Russia's been responsible for, after witnessing the plight and the destruction to not only the Ukrainian society, but different villages, towns, and cities in and around Ukraine, the devastation of people having to leave their towns and villages and cities because of the Russians, you're not going to find any empathy or sympathy or compassion from me, again, with this the inabilities for the Russian military to shoot down these Ukrainian drones and protect what is supposed to be the most heavily defended airspace, at least inside of Russia, if not, as they would have you believe, the entirety of the world. But here's just a little bit from Preston Stewart, gives us hopefully some more information, some more detail on what was used during this strike, how many drones Ukraine actually put up, how many were defended against, that type of thing. So there's probably going to be a lot of the same footage playing in the background as B-roll, but a little bit of the information that I think he comes out with here is some that we haven't dove into yet. So just again, as we close out today's show, a little bit from Preston Stewart. He says, massive drone attack leaves Moscow burning. And I just want to see if there's any more insight we could get, any more details we could get on some of these attacks here.
So right now, Moscow is on fire following one of the largest Ukrainian drone attacks on the Russian capital since the start of the war. And these videos coming out led one Russian reporter to ask the risky question, quote, "Is everything really going according to plan?" I mean, I can answer that. No, it's not at all. A daylight raid with hundreds of drones striking a target in Moscow that was already struck by Ukrainian drones just 48 hours ago? No. Everything is not going according to plan. But before diving into the details here, let's set the scene because we have unlimited footage at this point coming out of these strikes. What I'm showing right here is a short clip from earlier today. That is a Ukrainian drone flying over Moscow in broad daylight, anti-aircraft fire going off in the background while the refinery burns. Early in the
I was going to
clip,
see, you could just catch that, you can see the plume of smoke going by the screen right there. But if you look closely, you can see what looks to be the Russian missile or anti-drone defense trying to take it down, but obviously not having any impact. If you just look closely, you can see it zoom past the screen here on the left portion of your screen real quick.
is a short clip from earlier today. That is a Ukrainian drone.
So there's the
flying
drone
over
going by. You
Moscow
can
in
just
broad
see
daylight.
the
Anti-aircraft
air
fire
defenses
going
go
off in
up.
the background while the refinery burns. Early in the clip, a Russian surface-to-air missile misses the drone. Shortly thereafter, a second interceptor is launched from right in the middle of the target area. The drone circles around and impacts inside of the refinery. In fact, this is even better with the sound on without me babbling in the background. So here we go.
So there was one missile you can see going by. You can hear the small arms fire in the background. You can see one impact right here on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. What looks to be, I don't know if that's debris falling. I don't know if that's maybe the Russian missile going off track or whatnot. And then just in the middle of your screen coming up, you'll see another Russian air defense missile going up, and it goes into the smoke. It's hard to see if it makes contact. He does say that at the end of this, you can see or hear at least that this drone, the Ukrainian drone, does strike and make an impact. Whether or not it was, the debris, whether or not it was knocked off is a little bit hard to tell, I think, because of the smoke, but you can hear it in the background. Second drone, second missile going up. Now, kind of goes straight into the plume of smoke at the top of your screen there. So like I said, it's kind of hard to see what happens after that. But by the sound of it, it seems like the drone, whether, because it was hit and knocked down and still managed to have a strike because of the warhead on it, or because of it, was managed to get to its intended target. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can hear the explosion in the background, I believe. So you hear the boom? And you can just see at the end of that. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. No, that's only making it smaller on your screen. But this is as big as I can make it. My apologies. I'm not in the way to seeing it. But if you look at the lower left-hand portion of the screen here, kind of in the vicinity where my mouse is, you can just at the end of it see that it looks like the Ukrainian drone kind of went in the smoke plume, circled back around, and still managed to hit inside of the oil refinery. So I'll just replay it just for a second there. Look towards the bottom left-hand side of the screen. And you can hear the elevated, the elevated voice in the Russian just as it's about to hit. So when you hear the elevated voice, look at the lower portion of your screen. So you hear the boom. And then keep watching right around here. Right there, you can see the impact of the drone going in.
The Ukrainian president
small fireball that came from that. So obviously,
he addressed this morning, saying, "quote
Excuse me, it didn't even look like the second anti-drone missile that was launched there by the Russians had any impact or effect. Looked like the Ukrainian drone just kind of made another loop, came back and hit the intended target anyways."
Tonight, our long-range sanctions once again hit the Moscow region. For the second time in a week, the Moscow oil refinery was targeted. This is a fully justified response to Russian attacks on our cities and communities. It's time to end this war, and Russia must take the necessary steps in diplomacy. The Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces said the Moscow oil refinery is one of the 10 largest oil refining enterprises in Russia. Its installed capacity is 11 million tons of oil per year. The enterprise produces fuel and other petroleum products that are used to support the Russian economy and military logistics. A couple of key takeaways here before we get into kind of the Russian cope is probably the best way to put it. Holy cow. is the pro-Russian community pissed off about this morning? We are seeing the results of these mid-range strikes. So it's been almost an air defense system a day for months on end now. That has real
The
consequences.
amount of footage coming out from this is just wild. It really is. I mean, you can see him playing the B-roll in the background, some of which we've seen, others we haven't seen yet. I mean, you can see, it looks like to be a Russian air defense missile being shot out as, I don't know, looks to be, 25 feet maybe from these, Russians that are just sitting there on the street kind of gawking at the fire. You can see how kind of scared they are. There's no sound on it, but if you look at the circle where he's playing the B-roll in the background, you can see the people flinch when it looks to be like a missile, looks to be like an anti-drone missile is shot right next to them.
So it's been almost an air defense system a day for months on
that
end
one
now.
going up?
That
Now
has
this one.
real consequences.
See them react to it going off kind of right next to them, or it looks to be on the other side of that bridge that they're on?
These are the consequences. Russia, just to hammer this home, has more targets available to the Ukrainian drones than they have resources to protect them. They do not have enough air defense assets for the size of the country and the range and the volume of Ukrainian drones. This attack on the Moscow refinery, the stage was set a couple days ago. When Ukraine was looking at it, they launched a number of drones in that relatively small scale attack. They were able to identify.
That seemed to be kind of like the precursor, right? Just kind of sniffing out the territory a little bit, seeing what kind of air defenses are in place. Like that was just kind of their poking their nose around a little bit to see, what could be done and how this secondary larger strike was going to go. So again, they were just kind of setting the table a little bit, kind of getting their last minute resources down, last minute pieces of intelligence down before they enacted this strike here. So again, just shows the ability they have not to just strike these things, but to go in and utilize their intelligence and loiter a little bit and recognize where the air defenses are in place and how to get around those air defenses. I mean, it shows a real capability there of utilizing the ability they have to stay within the airspace there, over the Russians.
Identify the best routes in, the best angles to attack these refineries, where the Russian air defense assets were, where there were gaps in their coverage. Once they had that information, still achieving effects on targets 48 hours ago, they swarmed drones, hundreds. In fact, a couple different accounts here. The Russian Ministry of Defense said 992 Ukrainian drones were launched into Russian territory overnight. Are you kidding me? 1,000 drones fired by Ukraine into Russia. Now, that's across the entirety of Russian territory. It was something like mixed numbers, but I've heard between 400 and 500 fired at Moscow. Russia does not have the ability to protect all of Russia. There are too many drones for them to shoot down, and a number of them are now getting through. In fact, there was a video that's going to be iconic, I think, for this war. I'll play it here real quick of the top flying off of an oil tank. And before we get back into the kind of...
It's going to be one of the more historic videos to come out of this war, I assure you, is going to be this clip of the oil storage tank getting its fucking dome blown off.
Serious stuff here. I do want to share some of these memes. There's too many to go through. Crazy picture, right? I'll put a couple of them up here on the screen in the description, the video description. I'll have a link over to a couple different threads on X or Twitter that are compiling what people have put together, kind of the jokes around this this exploding fuel tank. Pretty significant image.
Oh, let me show you what I made real quick. Let me show you what I made too. Just a little aside here. If I can go to Blue Sky, because I immediately saw that photo and I recognized kind of the ability to utilize that for propaganda purposes. So let me just see if I can throw this on the screen. Somebody's already posted. Holy shit. Thank you to Helen. Helen already posted on Blue Sky the picture of Benny Johnson. Check this out. Thank you so much, Helen. I appreciate that. 13 minutes ago, captured that screenshot that I wanted to capture. So I'll go back and get that later on. Thank you so much, Helen, for that. Very much appreciate it. But this patch is the one that I wanted to show you. I don't know. Why is it so big on the screen? Let me see if I can make it a little smaller. You can get the whole thing. 125. Here you go. So this is the NAFO patch that I designed. Moscow in flames with that top. I know it looks a little bit like a football, right? You can't get them all. You can't win them all. But I think everybody gets the idea in the picture of what's taking place. And again, I think that's going to be a very iconic moment of this war. One that's going to be very, very memorable. So like I said, maybe we'll turn this into another patch that we can get on one of our NAFO campaigns. But yeah, that's kind of the patch that I came up with as far as that top being blown off. So just figured I'd show you guys that as well. But I do appreciate you guys. Lots going on, whether it's the symbolism of Donald Trump signing the United States surrender in Versailles, the fact that the Ukrainians again continue to hammer away at Russian territory, more specifically that Moscow oil refinery, to bring the war to the doorstep of the Russians, or all of the right-wing cope, or just the right-wing people that are recognizing the disastrous MOU that Donald Trump has signed. Again, not a finalized deal by any stretch of the imagination. We still have a lot to hash out. We have to keep watching what Israel intends to do. Seems to be, from a lot of what we've heard from a lot of their leadership, they don't plan on playing ball, so to speak. So I'm sure that's going to in some way throw a wrench in the works, and we'll keep our eyes on that. But what do you say we get to thanking everybody on Venmo, anybody that sent over a kind contribution to the show? You can utilize the Venmo yourselves up here. All you got to do is take a picture of it with your cell phone, takes you right to the Venmo. And again, all we ask for is $1 or $2, guys, nothing above and beyond that. If you do feel we're worthy of anything above and beyond that, and it fits your financial capabilities, then, I'm not going to stop you. I won't block you. But again, $1 or $2 from everybody in the chat would go a long, long way at changing the aspects of this show, changing the capabilities of this show. So thank you so much to Brian H. Much appreciated, my man. Thank you for every day stepping up here. I need to divide up money so I can help a little longer. Let's go, Slava Ukraine. I was incarcerated for a minute, and brother, there are Nazi knowers there. It's their religion. Well, Bri Guy, thank you so much. Much appreciated for your kind contribution. And again, no apologies, sorries, or anything like that you don't think you're sending enough. Again, it is more than enough, and I appreciate every single dollar that comes in. Thank you so much again for everybody over the last couple days as well. Much appreciated to Nance. Thank you so much to Allison. Thank you so much to Damon. Thank you so much to Sarah. Who else am I missing? Victoria and Tom, Karen and Roger. Thank you to Nina C. Very much appreciate you for everything that you guys do over the last couple days. And again, let's hop over here to YouTube and see if we can thank some people that either reached the milestone, sent in a super chat, whatever you guys have done to contribute to the show. I want to make sure to appreciate and congratulate all you guys. Starting it off today with Yakov. Let's go, brother. Big salute to you, my friend. Thank you so much for the one gifted membership. Very much appreciate that, and letting another fantastic member of the community join in on a membership there. Hope you're having a wonderful day, my friend, and thank you for everything you do in the community. Thank you, Carol. Scott Besson must be so proud of this deal, right? I can smell the sarcasm coming off of that. Very much appreciated for the $5 contribution, and absolutely, there's just nobody that can, again, turn this into a victory by any stretch of the imagination. Tim Pool tried about as hard as anybody's going to try to, and even he couldn't come up with anything. Thank you, Jordan, as well, for the $5, my friend. Has any other country in modern history lost more wars than the United States? I'm sure there's probably an answer in there somewhere, but you'd have to give me a little bit more time. But, to the best of my recollection at this point, I'd say no. I'd say no. Definitely under the leadership of Donald Trump, we're set to see even more embarrassment to continue. So to answer your question, I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. But thank you so much, Jordan. Very much appreciate you, your $5 contribution. Always watching the show, being there in the chat means a lot. Thank you so much to Abby for gifting 5 memberships. Again, 5 fantastic people in the chat now getting a Boston Brian membership because Abby is an amazing person. Thank you so much, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much to Bri Guy here on YouTube as well. An addendum to my Venmo, some of my jailhouse Nazi dorm mates are in private security or private paramilitary groups, and most certainly MAGA. Not hard to believe, right? I mean, we've heard the stigma with the, we'll just, for lack of a better example, the military in the United States, right? How they utilize and play Fox News on all of the bases. We've heard all of the the different, things going on behind the scenes, let's just say, of some of the beliefs of a lot of people in the military and who they support. But again, you're 100% right. A lot of people coming out of this, this exact environment and being utilized within private security or paramilitary groups. I assure you. So you're 100% right. Bri, appreciate again, not only the Venmo, but the $5 super chat here as well. Thank you, Bicycle Mike, as well. Thank you. He says, fuck Trump, fuck cancer, fuck Russia. And I second every single one of those. So thank you guys for today. Much appreciated. I know I'm asking a lot of you guys to continuously participate in the campaigns and fundraisers that we're involved in, as well as trying to support the show, buying merch and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that, I appreciate and recognize, the contributions and how how thin you guys spread yourself. I know you guys watch a lot of other channels above and beyond mine, and they ask the same things for you guys to support them and send in super chats and to, buy their merch and yada, yada, yada. So I understand you guys are spread thin. So I want to make sure to say thank you for everything that you guys do. And again, the honor and privilege of getting us into a position to be a part of the Help 99, NAFO 69 Sniffer Brigade campaigns, even as much as it is, a takeaway to the channel itself. It is a worthy cause, and I am happy and more than, like I said, more than happy to be involved and privileged to be involved with that mission. So again, big thank you to you guys. Make sure you stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive. If you just join us for the first time, my name is Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. Again, the little podcast that could. We're just a blue-collar show that tries to sift through the bullshit, propaganda, and lies of the mainstream media, Donald Trump, and the broader Republican Party. And we just try to do it like we're talking to our friends and family. So if that's something you enjoy, if that's something you like, if you find yourself enjoying the chat, the community that we've built here, or just the show in general, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 25K, and it's only with your help that we're going to get there. So thank you guys so much, everybody that sent in a Venmo. Thank you to everybody heading over to bostonbrian.com. Like I said, you can get all of the links to my different social media sites. You can get the link to the merch shop there, the Blunt Politics merch shop. We have great, fantastic designs on there pertaining to being part of the opposition, being part of the resistance, human rights, all of the things, hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, all of those things. So I appreciate anybody that's heading over there and utilizing that site as well. Anything that I'm missing? I don't think so. So a big salute to the mods, big salute to the best chat on earth. Like I said, get out of your seats, get into the streets. I'm pretty sure we're not pissed off enough in this country. So the sooner we recognize the plight and the seriousness of the situation, the sooner that we can react accordingly. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Friday show. It's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, somewhere in between, depending on where you live. Again, I'm Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Let me see. One of these buttons should get me out of here. I think it is maybe this one. Appreciate it.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую. Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill. They were fighting uphill. He said, wow, that was a big mistake. He lost his great general. And they were fighting. Never fight uphill, me boys. But it was too late.
Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was. The Battle of Gettysburg, what an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow. I go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to look and to watch.
We're a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your...
Call them dumps, big massive dumps.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
I mean, they've been conserved since the time of lobsters, right? There weren't trees around when lobsters first manifested themselves on the planet.
Where you going? Nowhere. I'm just an average guy who read public documents where the elite said they were going to enslave us and destroy America, and I'm not going to be like yuppie scum and deny the threat to my country. I'm going to fight back.
I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis. I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis.
I am the chosen one.
Wrong.
I'm just dandy. I got a bowl of chocolate pudding in my underpants.
They call them dumps, big massive dumps.
He says, wrecked them, damn near killed them. What in the hell was that all about?
Hey, you got a little chubby going there.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Bad news, bad news. Even when it's good news, it's bad news.
Oh, get those lights off! Off! Turn them off. They're too bright. Turn them off.
The big, fat, sloppy